Where it will turn largely dry, clear as well. One or two mist and fog patches developing, particularly across eastern England where we saw those daytime showers. And again, with light winds, it will turn chilly once again. Widely, we could see temperatures falling 7 to 10 degrees in towns and cities, but colder than that, I think, in more rural spots. So as we can move on to Thursday, then the start of the bank holiday weekend, it's looking like actually a very fine picture across the board. Largely dry and fine, lots of sunshine to start the day, light winds once again. We will see some cloud bubbling up through the day, and that could lead to 1 or 2 showers for northern parts of England, but generally in that sunshine, fairly warm, highs of 15 to 22 degrees. Many areas will stay largely fine through the weekend. Still the risk of some showers though, particularly towards the south.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick.
Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Stephen Allen. Tonight my comedy panel includes Dana Alexander and Scott Capurro. We'll get down to the business of reviewing the papers for you shortly, but first let's get the news with Polly.
Thanks, Steve. Good evening to you. The top stories tonight. The first flight carrying migrants from the UK to Rwanda will take place in 2 weeks' time. The group will include those who've made illegal journeys to enter the UK, including crossing the English Channel in small boats. The Home Secretary is saying the relocation plans will help overhaul the UK's broken asylum system and clamp down on people smugglers. Boris Johnson claims his Partygate fine is not a breach of the ministerial code. The Prime Minister's standards advisor says the fine could be a violation of his duty to comply with the law within the code, and that he must therefore set out his case in public. Mr Johnson was given a fixed penalty notice for attending his own birthday party in June 2020 during lockdown and says there was no intent to break the law. The Culture Secretary, Nadine Dorries, has said she's confident the Prime Minister hasn't broken any rules.
There has been an investigation by the Met Police. The Prime Minister has been to the House of Commons. He's apologised, humbly apologised. He's accepted the lessons that need to be learned from the Sue Gray's report. He's implemented most of the recommendations, and he has not misled the House of Commons. So, yes, absolutely, the Prime Minister can survive.
Well, the Labour MP Fleur Anderson says all Conservative MPs need to take this matter seriously.
It's not just about the rules of parties now, it's about the rules of being a minister and whether or not he should stay because of that. So
such a respected person as Lord Guy, the ethics advisor, is saying that this is the whole issue of whether Boris Johnson has broken the ministerial code is seriously in question, then I think this is it's an important new development that Conservative MPs will really have to listen to.
Meanwhile, the Labour leader and his deputy have both received questionnaires from Durham Constabulary as part of their investigation into Beergate. The pair are alleged to have broken lockdown rules during a gathering in work offices last April. Sir Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner have both said they will offer their resignations if they're issued with fixed penalty notices for breaking COVID rules. International news just lastly, in Ukraine, the governor of Luhansk has said Russia now controls the easternmost city of Severodonetsk. There's been an all-out assault by Russian forces to take control of the strategic town over the last few days, and the authorities are warning civilians not to leave their bomb shelters following a Russian airstrike on a chemical plant. Meanwhile, in the southern region of Kherson, Russian forces have shut down all telecommunications in the area. More on that when we get it. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News, and now it's Headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Stephen Allen, and my newspaper reviewers tonight are Canadian Dana Alexander and American Scott Capurro, countries famous for their syrup and their obesity, both of which I've enjoyed lately. How are things going? Both all good?
Doing well.
I've got some insider knowledge. I hope it's not bad to talk out of turn, but you've sustained an injury. I know this about you.
I think I broke my right foot pinky toe. I was packing to rush off for a gig, you know what it's like, and you're running, and I'm going to Ireland, I want everyone to like me. And I slid and banged I didn't think it was that bad, and it turned purple and black. And
that's a bad sign.
I know, I think it's dead. I think I killed
10
it.
black toes.
Somehow you soldier on.
I don't know if you knew that, but...
Let's start with the front pages then. The Daily Mail, first of all. And they go with the story after Boris's ethics chief adds to drip drip of plotters threatening PM. Minister blasts Tory MPs doing Labour's dirty work as rebels without a clue. The front page of the Daily Telegraph. Explain Partygate. Ethics chief tells PM. The front page of The Guardian. Ministers accused of fueling anger as rise in violence hits GP surgeries, which is where Scott will be with his toe pretty soon. Financial Times. EU-UK pact on insurance bans deals fresh blow to Russian oil exports, which I'm sure that'll cost us at some stage. The front page of The Mirror has their main picture, Dad's not totally happy about me appearing in Love Island, but I will try to keep it classy, by Michael Owen's girl. Big news. They also have the Forgive Andrew story on their front page. For the Metro, Boris may be toast. They've gone with a visual puns. And the Star. Do we have the stars? No, those are your front pages. Get inside the papers. We lead with Wednesday's Daily Mail, and more Tory MPs seem to have it in for Boris Johnson, and some of them we've actually heard of, Dana.
Yes, so Andrea Leadsom is actually accusing Boris Johnson of unacceptable failings of leadership, and I mean, this isn't the first time he's been accused of that. So what they're trying to do is make sure that they don't have too many people with their letters of non-confidence. They're going to need 54 more for a vote, which could happen, but what's less likely to happen is that they get their path in the larger vote, that they actually get the 180 votes they would need to actually unthrone him, de-seat him.
Yeah. Well, even then, if it's just a vote of no confidence, I'm about to now repeat something that I read on Twitter, which is probably just some guesswork, but somehow it sticks in my head. There's a theory on the internet that this is about trying to force that vote of no confidence, which Boris Johnson will win, and then it's a year of being safe. You can't have another one.
She's meant to be a fuse, isn't she, to create a sort of explosion that you're talking about, that then fizzles out in the end and benefits him. Kind of the way his other previous incidents have been in his career. He always seems to land on his feet, doesn't he? Yeah. I think it was a letter of no confidence, but also it was a vote for herself to be prime minister. I think she still hungers for it. She ran again in 2019. I don't think she's let go. And I think this is about her saying, I'm still here.
Interesting.
I want the office. She wants it badly.
And hasn't learned lessons from what happened with the whole Theresa May situation?
Well, you know, Boris slid in because of other people's mistakes. It happens more often than not. And I think she's hoping that this will be a big enough mistake in his career that she can kind of snake her way in.
Now, on this story, I think it's required that we ask the standard question: do people care? Should we still be talking about it? We must be on day like 1,382 of Partygate. Is it still important?
I think we got to play it smart. I think the Tories are looking for all the support that they can get. I think we were very, very lucky to get that energy rebate, and I think we should just keep pushing them. Maybe we can get a tax cut. You know what I mean?
There are benefits to his misbehavior. You're right. I mean, I do also think that there are other obviously more important issues to discuss internationally. But I think because he's a leader of this country, obviously, and people want to have faith and trust and believe every word he says, it might be good if they can him. I think it's time for him to go.
It's also just disrespectful to anybody who wasn't able to see their family member in a hospital dying of COVID. You know, it's just a real spit in their face.
I agree with Dana. And, you know, the British public in general are so protective of the royal family these days, much more than any other time I've ever been in this country. I've been coming over since 1994. And I can't believe that image of the Queen mourning the death of her spouse by herself in the cathedral is not enough to make people so angry that they want him out of office. I mean, that alone, that image, to me, I thought that's the end of surely it's the end of his career.
I guess we don't really know yet, do we? There's not been a time when the public's been asked to vote for anything.
The thing is, I think there are, like we said, there are more important issues to talk about, and I think we can talk about them when he's gone. He's not, he's not the only one. There's lots of them.
But it's hard to get them out, too, when we're in times of potential war as well, right?
But he's fungible. I find him fungible, don't you?
Still don't really know what fungible means after NFTs. But now might not be the time for me to learn.
Oh, right.
Wednesday's time, and your nationality is going to be useful for this, because a country is thinking about removing the Queen as the head of state. America did it, Canada didn't. Look at the difference. What does that tell Australia, Dana?
Oh, well, what it says is that times are changing, and I'm sure you know that there are 54 Commonwealth countries currently, but there have been 65 countries to claim independence from Britain. I mean, Britain really can't say a lot, considering it fought for its independence from Europe, right? Everybody wants their sovereignty, and if Australia wants that, that makes sense to me. And I think, you know, pretty much everybody on Earth has lived a life with the Queen. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know that Charles is somebody that a lot of people want as their head of state.
Interesting. I thought you were going to be in favour, because now we turn to our American correspondent. How is getting rid of a monarch for you?
Well, I agree with Dana again. I mean, you know, you escaped with the stronghold of the EU. You got out of that bureaucracy. You know what it's like. You know, you want to be on your own. You'll be fine. And I think Australia will be okay, too. I think also the younger generation, whatever that means these days, they want to crawl. They want to crawl out from under what they feel is, the studies show, what they feel is a repressive regime.
And there has to be some benefit to being in the Commonwealth. I mean, the purpose of the Commonwealth is for international cooperation for advancing economics, social development, and human rights. But what does that actually mean for countries? They need to actually have a benefit to make them want to stay in the Commonwealth, wouldn't you think?
I think it's true. And I think also one thing that people like to deal with in Australia, that's my experience being there, is acclimating more the Aboriginal population. I feel strange using that word. I'm more likely to use the word Indigenous, although this article from the Times says Aboriginal a lot, so I guess it's still okay. But I think that community needs to be made to feel safe.
Which I think would be an acknowledgement of what's happened in the past, right? Which the Royals seem very unwilling to do, as we saw on their last Caribbean tour, right?
So I think you could acknowledge that without removing.
Oh, without apologising.
It's the job of Australia to acknowledge that, I suppose.
But I think the first step toward that is removing the royal family and that past, that history. The history of colonization. Yeah.
Let's move on to Wednesday's Guardian, and it looks like some people will have a 2-week break in Manchester Airport.
Oh God! I mean, I was just in Dublin, and the line just to get through security snaked outside the airport like a half mile around the parking structure. It was insane. I did an OJ over so many lines to get through. No, I didn't stab anybody, but I got through. There's a famous TV commercial in the US of OJ running through an airport.
Right.
Anyway, so yeah, I got
that, but we know the other stuff.
I barely made it by 2 minutes. But I know that I have a feeling what this disappointment is like, but apparently TUI passengers have had their holidays wrecked and their travel canceled. over 180 more flights will be cancelled over the weekend. And Manchester Airport says that until the end of the month, they're going to cancel about 7 flights a week. No, 7 flights. Yeah, 43 flights a week will be canceled at Manchester Airport alone. It'll be an ongoing disruption they can't seem to control. And TUI is being blamed, and its ground handler, Swissport, which manages its check-in and baggage handling.
No accountability. Yeah,
staff shortages. And when you go, apparently, to Manchester Airport, and they also mentioned the Doncaster, where people had been stranded and then their vacations ended on the way to Mallorca. When you go there, there's no one there to tell you anything. In Dublin, there was nothing. There was just nothing.
Yeah.
And fights were breaking out. People were panicking. People in wheelchairs were panicking. Obviously, so with these as well, TUI just shuts their office. Apparently, just closes the.
Because they can't face that angry mob. When I just got back from Vienna, coming back to London, it was insane. They told everybody to get to the airport early, and I got there. The queue was crazy, and it was they had really lost the plot. They were basically calling for people in the line. Hey, are you going to so and so? Your plane's about to take off, and I had to get aggressive in the line, like, hey, mine's gonna go. It's gonna close in 15 minutes. I've been in this line for an hour.
At least you had that. They weren't doing that at Dublin. They were doing any of it. I'm so at least you had that.
Yeah, well, you have to push to the head. You're American. You know what that's about.
Now, my online time with the algorithm knowing I love a good conspiracy theory means I've been reading about this on social media. Some people, and maybe let's say this is unfounded or you can't. It's someone else's tweet, don't blame me for it, saying that their flights were cancelled. They saw the same flight then advertised 400% more expensive. So, I don't know.
And they have to put the prices up because when they don't leave the tarmac, I don't know if you know this, the fines that they incur from the FAA are insane. But who are they going to pass that on to? Us.
Yeah. But some of these people are not finding out their flight's been canceled until they're at the airport, ready to go, like dressed up in cute little outfits and all packed. It's kind of like, getting to the altar for a marriage and then your spouse not showing it. It's like, it must be so disappointing. And some people plan their vacations. This one person
said... And can they cancel their hotels? Can they get their money back?
Well, TUI does all that, so that's why the whole vacation gets canceled.
Oh, of course.
Someone had said, too, that they had planned their flight and their trip 3 years in advance, and it was a gift for a nurse who'd worked overtime at COVID, a friend of hers, and they didn't find out. They stayed. They got a hotel room at Gatwick, stayed, thinking they could go the next day, and then that flight and the entire trip was canceled.
And people will put that on. They tried that on my mom on her way to South Africa recently from Heathrow, and she went to the best hotel.
Oh, God.
Like she wasn't doing it on a budget. She's like, oh, you're paying. This is you're going to pay.
Yeah.
Till Wednesday's Times now, and the BBC has corrected itself on a trans issue.
Well, the BBC has amended a controversial trans story, but are kind of silent on pronoun claims. Apparently, the BBC story was the subject of thousands of complaints and protests. The corporation's Executive Complaints Unit, ECU, issued a roughly 4,000-word ruling on the BBC News website article where it talked about lesbian women claiming, it gave the impression in the title of the article that gay women had been pressured to have sex with trans women. And the article was actually about gay women feeling they had to give into social construct and pressure and have sex with trans women, even though they didn't really feel like they wanted to. They weren't being forced physically, they were forcing themselves in their own mind. So they had to kind of reword the title of the article, and they're still not... They're not sure. It doesn't seem like they're confident on pronouns, though, the BBC with this article.
But the survey that it was based on is a questionable one statistically.
Yes, it was actually conducted by Get the L Out, and it was only 80 people who were part of that group that were studied. So they would say that would skew it because they weren't actually going out into the wider population. But to what Scott was talking about earlier, feeling pressured into having sex by some trans women. Welcome to being a woman. Which woman hasn't been pressured to have sex with a man? Do you know what I mean? That's just welcome to Earth.
I think these gay women, they want to feel safer, and I think that they don't feel supported by the community they're involved in if they turn down a trans person. I think the trans person,
aren't we just allowed to reject who we don't fancy? I mean, it's a discriminatory, dating is discriminatory by nature, right?
We are, of course, but I think the article itself came into trouble because the pronouns they were mentioning were not identifying the people who felt they'd been put in awkward positions properly. And one woman complained that she had been in another article that the BBC had sort of talked about, that she had been raped by a him. And then the actual pronoun used should have been an it or a they. And so the BBC had to go back and look at the pronoun and decide how that could be used.
I didn't know it was appropriate.
It sounds rude to me as well.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah, journalism ain't easy, right?
Yeah, although finding a survey that's not based on 80 people where they self-select. I mean, you can find any result, especially with online now. You can get 80 people who think something. You can.
I'm sure there's 80 people who like that jacket.
Study.
You know, it would be hard.
Or promote your own study to get the findings you want. You know?
Nothing wrong with this jacket, my friend. Not 80 people, just one who likes it.
The only thing wrong with it is
right
it matches the trousers.
Wednesday's Mail now. And the son of a politician heckled another politician, Dana.
Oh, my God.
Yes. So the trans activist Nadim Zahawi, I think that's how you pronounce it, off of Warwick University campus, is the son of Ed Balls and Labour Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper. What I thought was really interesting about this is the way that the Mail has put this. Mr. Zahawi was hounded by around 30 activists who chanted, "Zahawi is a transphobe, Tory scum." Okay, well, when you really break this down, when you look at what the person who was actually being challenged said, he said, "The student, Mr. Cooper, was very polite to me. He made a reasonable point about how schools can help children, which I was happy to debate. His rights of speech is vital to his rights to speech are vital too." So, I mean, come on, this is just another attempt to, the far left.
It now, by the way.
You know what I'm? All of this rhetoric. Oh, they're too woke. And I mean, what do you think a protest is supposed to be? It's supposed to be disruptive by nature. What did he want? A lullaby?
But do you need to disrupt to have the conversation? I mean, the quote that you've just had is that it's not about the disruption. It's he said things were dealt with politely. Well, it goes to show that you can have a conversation without being disruptive. Wouldn't that be a better option?
Well, this is where I get a little bit iffy when we say we have to tolerate other people's views. You have to consider what those views are. Do you know?
Aren't you asking for the views of the protesters to be tolerated as well? There's a symmetry to the situation.
So, okay, what if my view is, I don't actually think you're fully human, or I don't think that you should be able to marry. You know, when people start questioning your identity and your humanity, we're getting close to hate speech, and for me, that's not debatable. If I have to start...
Shouldn't they be the exceptions to the rule? If we can't agree that the rule should be either side of an issue should be polite to each other, and then maybe you can find exceptions. But it feels like what we're trying to do is build a rule using the exceptions first.
I just don't see where a protest is impolite, I suppose. You know what I mean?
But do you not find disruption? Well, Scott, I mean, disruption, you have that at every gig I've ever been at.
Yes, thanks for pointing that out. And I think that, I try to breed it when I'm there. I like a bit of frisson. But I think the problem here might have been that the Education Secretary, he's spearheading a freedom of speech bill, which will allow students, unions, and universities to be fined or even sued for censorship. And I think that what he's saying is anyone is allowed on campus to speak. And if you try to cancel that speech, you could be fined or sued. And he was defending Kathleen Stock, who amongst students had taken on, these students at least, and they see her as negative, and they think that she's transphobic and all that garbage they've said about her, which is untrue. But anyway, I would like to see protests on campus. That's where they should happen. And I would like to see, like you said, I'd like to see these people just have a conversation about it. And I'd like to see the media not whip it up, like you're saying, into something that it's actually not. Right? I mean, this guy handled himself. He's the education secretary. He can take on 30 students verbally. I think I would have liked to have been there, actually.
There's a point, too, when you get into these debates where when does it become gaslighting? I love to watch, one of my favorites is Roland Martin, and he had, what was that guy who's a leader of the far right? Do you remember his name? I can't remember. He's been hounded down anyways. This guy literally was questioning our humanity. How do you start a debate like that? If you can't even come into a debate and agree that I am an equal human being with rights that are equal to yours, I mean, that's no place to start.
Yeah, but that is in the not the rule, but the now I've forgotten the word. It is something when it's not the exception to the rule. That's it. So yeah, again, we can highlight the exceptions, but you can't use the exception to disprove the rule, which is you could start from a place of non-disruptive conversation. In fact, if you don't start from there,
just for me, it really depends on where we're starting the conversation.
OK, well, that's it for part one. After the break, a questionable sperm donor, regenerating livers, and the boomers are at it again. See you soon.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Stephen Allen, still joined by American Scott Capurro and Canadian Dana Alexander, so at least two of us can spell the word favour correctly. Scott, to the Mirror, and a story of a sperm donor who didn't come clean.
Yeah, when they tell you don't use my sperm, you should listen to them. There was something about this guy that seemed a bit off when he met one of his sperm donees. And she invited him into her life anyway. She had him come live with her. She already had one child with his sperm, and then he was there during the lockdown. She had another child. And then he started knocking her around and touching the kid inappropriately. She called the cops. And James McDougall is his name, 37. Turns out when they tested his sperm, his sperm has a low IQ count. And his mother said, he's really nice, he's sweet, and he's kind. He wouldn't touch anyone in an inappropriate way. As it turns out, she's wrong. And all these applications have gone on. He's tried to gain access to some of the 15 childs that I'm using his word, childs, that he's birthed. And some courts have said yes, some have said no. So it's very confusing, actually, what the family court has said.
So many questions.
I know, me too.
The first one would be, how can sperm have a low IQ?
It has one of his X chromosomes is fragile, capital F. It's a fragile X syndrome, it's called. So it's a little wobbly X. It doesn't know what direction to go in. So when asked a question, it kind of doesn't answer properly.
One of his kids can't speak.
Yes. Well, yes. Yeah. And the other one is having a hard time with physical movement and stuff. And the mother says, I just would have liked to have known, although she'd already had one child with him. Anyway, she went back to it. So I guess some people, he'd advertised online for lesbians who wanted his sperm, particularly a particular social group, and they responded, at least 15, the mothers of 15 children responded. Yeah.
So ordinarily a sperm donor has anonymity, I'm reliably informed.
Yeah.
They do.
But in this case, the judges decided not because...
Probably because of the avenue he went to, give the sperm. It wasn't legal through the... Well, I guess it was.
It wasn't
legal.
through the government.
It wasn't through the clinic, right? So
right, but now he's going through family court trying to get parental responsibility and child arrangement orders. And the Derby court has ordered Mr. McDougall to stop using his sperm. Stop.
I just want to know why.
Why he wants more kids?
There's no financial compensation for him.
No, he wants contact with children. That's what his mother said. He said he wants to be around. He likes to be around kids, but he might have the mental capacity of someone maybe around, well, who's younger than him, and it makes him feel cozy. Right?
Too cozy sounds like it.
The take-home message is always use an official sperm bank or building society if they do those, or if they should.
It's tricky, actually. Funny enough, I have a friend who's a trans male and was mixed race and could not find black sperm at the clinic. So was literally asking everyone black that he knew, including my brother, if he had any, and they all said, they're like, no, we're not. Because we know him, you know what I mean? Like, it's different, I guess. Be a little bit easier, I would think, from a stranger.
It sounds as though this guy, James McDougall, was an only child too, and maybe he wanted a family.
Maybe.
You know?
One interesting way of going about it.
Yeah.
The Independent now, and you can't get a flight for a holiday, but a deportation flight to Rwanda could be starting soon, Dana.
Yes, first Rwanda deportation flight set for next month as asylum seekers are given final notice. She says she will not be deterred by attempts to frustrate the removal process. But, I mean, can we really believe this? These flights get canceled all the time. In fact, there was a flight that was just canceled going to Iraq. I mean, you're sending people back to Iraq, to Erbil of all places, which was just recently bombed by Iran. It's not reasonable. And I think what's really interesting, and I think people need to consider this, is it was 81% of asylum claims were actually granted refugee status. So we're talking about potentially, 60 plus people that are completely innocent, already traumatized, putting them in Rwanda again, saying, oh, but it's not so bad. Well, if it's not so bad, why wouldn't they send the Ukrainians there? Why don't the Ukrainians have to stop off in the first safe country? Looks like there's a little bit of a double standard.
Well, the Home Office says their guidance states that new routes should be considered for asylum seekers who are deemed inadmissible. So the Home Office feels as though some of these people have come over in a dangerous or illegal method after January 1st.
Because there aren't the safe legal routes for them to get.
Of course there aren't, yeah. It includes people who arrive on small boats and have a connection to another safe country that is not the UK. I think she's saying, look, you live in a safe country originally, and you're coming over here illegally. We can send you back there. It's safe for you to live there, whether you can find a job or not for whatever reason you're coming here. But why go through Rwanda? It seems like an unnecessary expense to me.
But other than just the geography of it, the idea of it, that there might be, regardless of how small a fraction, someone who might be coming from a safe country has no reason to specifically come to the UK, should the system not be able to process people to find that person?
I think one thing we have to consider, the UNHCR official says that there is no international legal obligation on requiring refugees to seek asylum in the first safe country that they reach. So if they want to breach that agreement, then they need to get out of the UNHCR.
Well, let's see what happens with that as the court cases possibly happen.
May I say one thing, sorry, about this case? We've talked about this on the show before. I hate the idea that people have a negative connotation about Rwanda, which has actually tried to crawl out of its rather negative past, and they're doing quite well. It's a strong economy. It's an important country in the African continent. I hate to think of it negatively.
Have you got gigs coming up there soon?
I do. I'm going to be playing there in 3 weeks.
I thought that would be why. OK.
They named a town after me.
Wednesday's Telegraph next. And your liver could regenerate itself, not yours, Scott. Obviously, that's jerky now, but for everyone else.
Yes. Well, good news finally, guys. Right? The liver can regenerate. Well done.
If there's not too much cirrhosis, that is.
Yeah, exactly. They can take a liver, though. And it used to be that the liver couldn't live outside the body in transport for longer than a few hours. But now, because of these doctors in Zurich, at the University of Zurich in Switzerland, they have found a way to make the liver sustain itself by tricking it. They put it in a situation where it thinks it's still surrounded by organs or a temperature and things that seem like organs. It thinks it's still inside the body, so it starts to heal itself. And then they stick it in somebody, and it does quite well.
And it's good because there's a shortage of that particular organ. And what they're also finding is that people who have little bits of damage to their liver can now donate because they can be repaired and then reused. Look at that.
Yeah, they believe that around 60% of diseased or injured livers can now be used. And it's good because there are 600 people awaiting livers in the UK. So this might be...
Hundreds die every year just waiting for that transplant.
They talked to one guy who said that he wanted to remain anonymous, but he He'd entered an end-of-stage liver disease and liver cancer with a tumor that was growing out of control, and he thought he wouldn't make it. And they gave him the liver, and he's perfectly fine now. It's surreal, must be, isn't it, to think you're going to die? And not only are you better, you are. The doctor said it was like the liver in this guy now is like the liver in a healthy young patient that he'd be examining.
I wonder if they'll just let me trade mine in.
Yeah, just get a neg of it.
So we can get new livers. I think they can grow bladders from stem cells.
Is that what you're hoping for?
Get in there one at a time.
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind a couple of new joints, maybe a new shoulder on my right side, a new pinky toe.
I want a new jawbone.
Yeah, I want a new job. Can they transplant a new job in my life?
To the Telegraph now, Dana. And Canada's looking at gun control.
Yes, Canada's actually doing something in response to the American situation. Not that we've been without our mass shootings, of course. Our worst mass shooting was April 2020, which killed 23 people. So gun violence is actually up in Canada. And I believe it is, 2/3 of violence in the city, and 2/3 of gun crimes in urban areas often involve handguns. So, yeah, they want to take them off the streets. They want to stop production of them. I think Australia was quite successful with that once they had a mass shooting. It's so depressing. I mean, it's your country. Help.
Well, I don't know. I can't fire a gun. I can fire my yoga teacher, but I can't fire a gun. From California, but I wouldn't fire my yoga teacher, namaste, obviously. And I'll see you tomorrow morning. But I do know that it's a big country, the U.S., like Canada. You get a bit of everything. And I've only heard gunfire in Stockwell, in South London. So I'm as scared of it as everybody else, terrified. And my sister bought a gun so she can defend herself from terrorists, because she's afraid they can see her in her suburban home in California. There's a lot of paranoia and fear around it, and I don't think that the system in the U.S. is able to deal with the amount of guns. There's over 400 million guns in the U.S. 400 million, more than there are people.
So is that the problem, that even if now you change the law to whichever law you'd like it to be, you'd be in a situation where the law and the number of guns just somehow don't match?
The problem is, I think, yes, and the police are outnumbered. My uncle, who's an ex-police officer, told me that cops in the U.S. would love more gun control laws. There are some already. People think there is no gun control in the U.S. Obviously there is. But the courts, with elected officials, will not pass those laws because they think they'll lose their gig. And the police are outnumbered, and they, in terms of weaponry. And they know that.
And the NRA is a very powerful lobby.
And there are more guns in circulation than the police can control.
And there's also this idea, the only thing that's going to stop a bad man with gun is another guy with a gun. So people think getting another gun, and it just seems like a problem that just continues to multiply.
It's so strange. I was on a radio show in California recently. I appear sometimes on it from here. And they asked me, why is there so little gun violence in the UK? I'm like, because there are no guns.
Exactly.
It is the gun. It's the gun. It's not the person. I mean, yes, of course, the person that fires a gun.
But we're pretty good with those knives.
Oh, man.
But I suppose the argument to that would be that in countries where there are loads of guns, a greater percentage of guns per person, you can have them without there being loads.
It depends on the type of gun. And that's because that's the case in Canada, right? We have more guns per capita, I think, than Americans do. But that's because hunters hunt different things and require, like my mom said this before on the show, her boyfriend was a hunter. He had like 16 guns because it depended on what he was shooting. So
they're also reducing the rapid fire guns to 5 bullets in Canada. That's one thing they want to do, which is great, because one of the gun that student was using was more than that. Yeah. So that would help.
Well, interesting to see how that works in other countries. So the Times now, and you 70-year-olds are doing rather well, Scott.
Why'd you say you 70-year-olds? Good Lord.
You knew that was...
I've got 11 years yet. 1 in 7 people, I barely missed it too, 1 in 7 people aged 70, the Times says, have been dubbed the Platinum Jubilee Generation. They own a second home, 1 in 7 people aged 70. According to official stats, the Institute for Fiscal Studies has done a research thing about people who are of that age, and apparently they're the wealthiest generation in the history of the UK. If you're 70, you're the richest person in Britain's history. Because of the time you were born, the benefits you had, it meant that you were able to perhaps buy a second home, but also your salary has always been the highest of people within your age group. Like you've averaged £27,800 during the Golden Jubilee, which was £5,700 higher than the national average, and now their income is lower, $26,000 per year, but that's 6% higher than the national average still.
And on top of that, they benefited from the huge housing, when housing went out of control, right?
Yes,
of course,
sure.
they gained more equity in their properties. So they maybe paid $2 for their house back in 1965, and now it's worth $2 million. I mean, obviously, that's an exaggeration, but, you know, that's where a lot of this wealth is coming from.
Yeah, she's right. Younger people are less likely to own their own home than in the past. Half of people in their mid-30s to mid-40s had a mortgage in 2017 compared with two-thirds 20 years earlier. So, yeah, if you're younger, you're kind of it's messed up.
I mean, my parents bought their house for £1,000 in the 60s, and I've just had to sell it for them because I've been sorting out the estates.
You're rich.
And, I mean, no, it's in Mansfield, so it's not improved that much, to be fair, but it's gone up a bit more than £1,000. Imagine that, buying a house for
$1,500, I bet, hey?
It's a whole extra £500
Yeah.
back pocket. But, yeah, and of course, the other problem with this is, I suppose, that while ever people are owning two houses, there are fewer houses for people to buy, and that's the other part of this debate, the supply and demand issue with housing.
Yeah,
you can also use that second property as an income property
Yeah,
as
that's
well.
why they're making money off it, sure. Yeah. I mean, in 1977, those overstage pension age were more than twice as likely to be poor than those understage pension age. So it's flipped, isn't it? And I think you're right, because of that, property is making money for them. And they also own stock in companies. That's what it is, too. Those pensioners are the people that, you know, corporations are trying to please.
They're also part of that generation that, you know, came out of World War II, and they know how to save. Do you know what I mean? They understand rationing. They understand control.
Well, that's the end of part 2. Coming up, uncommon belly buttons, insect Armageddon, and an edict on Speedos. See you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you. And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Stephen Allen, joined by Dana Alexander and Scott Capurro as we make our way through the newspapers. We go now to Wednesday's Express. And have we worked out why women live longer than men, Dana?
Oh, that's an interesting question, actually. I think this is an emotional thing, I think, for men. I think a lot of the time men don't talk about their problems. Men are less likely to go to the doctors, things like that. Depression.
On that, can I jump in with a briefest of anecdotes? I need to go to the doctor. I called up 2 days ago to get a doctor's appointment. I've got a lump. Not as gross as it sounds. It's in my wrist. And they said, yeah, your doctor's appointment's in July.
Yeah.
So I guess the NHS only does long-term medical conditions these days.
Do you know what I think is so funny? That same thing happened to my partner, and it was interesting because he'd already healed by the time that they called him.
Yeah, you're either healed or dead by the time. That's how they do it.
Good, it's a good strategy.
But at least I was trying to go to the doctors, which was different to the average.
You mean your wife didn't make you?
No, actually, I couldn't stand the pain.
Oh, you're so sensible. Look at you.
I'm seeing a doctor tomorrow for my toe. I got an appointment in 2 days.
How did you get that then?
I told him I was in a lot of pain and I could barely walk, which is a bit of a lie. I can walk, I'm fine. But I'm in a bit of pain. And like, oh no, we'll get you in soon. Did you try emergency?
Well, no, because it's only a ganglion cyst. I'm not going to die from it. So I think it's too sensible. So this is not going to kill me early.
I'm worried about you.
Is this what the story's saying?
Yeah. Well, no.
So basically, exercise is an unmitigated good for the this story particularly is about when is the best time for men and women to exercise. So women that want to improve muscle strength in their upper body are better off taking evening exercises, as well as men for a different benefit. They also say that women might burn more fat in the morning because they are more likely to have excess belly fat. That's me. The body's internal rhythms may also be a factor. But at the end of the day, the best time to exercise, I think, in a world like this, which this doctor also says, is when you have the time, if you have the time.
That's a good point. I mean, if women were exercising at a different time to men, it means we'd need fewer gyms. We just take it in shifts.
Yeah, I always think it's better to do it in the mornings, too. And you just have more energy when you get up. You know, if you wait till after work, there's so many reasons to not go. So many excuses, you know. Just get it done. In the morning.
Fair enough. Well, Wednesday's Daily Star tells us of a country that makes people wear Speedos. The big question, Scott, is when are you moving there?
Another reason to go to France. Seriously, the French government has made it mandatory to wear a Speedo in a public pool because they say that shorts or other items of clothing, like they're too dirty. They could have dust or dirt. And you know, tight little fitting Speedos are easy to rinse and easy to wear for everybody. So they say rather than measuring people's shorts when they come to the pool, saying that's fine, that's not, all that, you know, falderall, they're just saying Speedos or get out.
The Speedos are not for everybody. You know, it brings me back to this one scene in Norbit, my favorite movie, when Rasputia, who is morbidly obese, gets to the pool and her stomach is so big you can't even see her bathing suit bottoms. Like, you're supposed to wear a bathing suit in the pool, ma'am. She's like, I am. Like, it's gonna get to that point. Like,
it's really funny when you're in Brazil, everybody's wearing something tiny and all the women wear the thing up the
thong.
All the thong. All the women do, no matter their age. Which it's like France. It's like everyone wears the same thing, so no one looks out of place and no one looks particular, you know?
I do struggle with the mental idea of a thong because if you break wind, surely it sounds like you're playing a reed instrument. It's like Acapulco, isn't it?
Right.
Well, mine disappears. It's just like, that's gone.
Good Lord. I do wear a Speedo 3 or 4 times a week. I prefer to swim in one, and I always feel kind of odd.
Circulation, though.
No, it's fine. It's fine. If they're
and the shrinkage of the cold water.
Well, no one's looking. I've got the Speedo on. But yes, I know. I'm conscious.
Is it a padded Speedo?
Yeah, a little bit. And there's always, you know, council pool, so often there's kids around. And I'm always kind of funny sharing a shower with kids in a Speedo. It feels a bit... So I've thought about wearing shorts. But they're just too hard to swim in. They slow you down, you know? I like feeling free and flying through the water.
Fun for everyone to see.
Yeah.
Telegraph next, and if it's not about flags or imperial measures, I'll tell you the one thing that makes this nation a great nation, and that is our breakfast. Dana, tell us more.
Yes, world-class breakfasts are the one thing that truly unites this fractured country. Well, that's a really poor sign because I never knew. I actually had a breakfast in Scotland, and I never met someone who could mess up toast. How do you mess up toast?
Because you've ordered toast. Why are you ordering toast when you should be ordering the full Scottish?
Well, I did, and she literally toasted my bread, didn't have a brown bread option, let the toast cool down, didn't let the butter thaw, just like stabbed my toast to death. It was the worst breakfast of my life, and I'm still confused to this day. I've had some... Have you ever been to a breakfast buffet in this country at a hotel?
Yeah.
They're horrible. Every time, like, oh.
I think somehow you've only spotted outliers. We make a fantastic breakfast, and that's one of the reasons that I can't wear Speedos.
You don't have the taste. We do. You know
the full insert name of whichever particular nation you're referring to, the English, the full Scotch. We do a stunning breakfast. Scott, surely you enjoy a sausage.
No, excuse me. No, nurse? No, I only eat a poached apple every morning.
What?
I slice an apple in quarters and I poach it with a bit of a clove in the water. Organic apple, of course. namaste. That's my breakfast. I might have oatmeal around 11 a.m. if I'm still hungry.
I'm sorry, a poached apple sounds like, if you give me that, I'd presume that's water to wash my fingers in,
right,
whilst I'm eating me fully.
Right. No, I don't eat that sort of thing. No, you go for it. I don't judge. I do judge. I'm judging you right now, but I'm not going to say anything. You eat what you like.
Yeah.
I can't consume. This doesn't just happen.
And we have to look at the quality of sausage in this country. If you couldn't take that to Italy and be taken seriously. I think the meat content you actually have to have in a sausage is something ridiculous, like 10%. And of that, and it doesn't even have to be meat. It can be that includes
Grizzle.
tissue and grizzle and.
Do you know what? Throughout history, tribes have always tried to make sure that they use every part of the animal, and somehow we've invented a way of mechanically recovering the meat from inside the bones.
Jamaican, right?
Every single
feet,
part of it.
pig's feet.
It's admirable.
Cow Manish water, which is goat head soup. I totally know about
Yeah, but now we blast high-pressure water at the carcass and get even more out, turn it into a sausage. What's wrong with that?
I don't mind an organic egg poached next to an apple. I don't know how you guys consume that food.
I used to date an Italian. He used to do his own sausage. Ever since I had that, not doing it again. I know I'm ready for a joke there, but yeah.
But I had an English breakfast when I've been high the next morning. And,
on life.
Yeah, exactly, high on life. And don't do drugs, kids. And I had the breakfast. It was delicious.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the flavors in there, like ice cream tastes good. I feel, after I eat that, I feel like I want to put my fist through all. I'm going to drive over somebody in a car. It's just
They microwaved the eggs. They microwaved the scrambled eggs. It was appalling.
It's quicker. Wednesday's Daily Mail next. And married men live longer than single men, or at least it feels like it. I felt like I had to do that joke.
I think it's all hype and a lie just to make people get married because no one wants to anymore. But apparently the Daily Mail says that a happy wife, longer life, which sounds homophobic, but they don't mean it to be. Anyway, being married is linked to 20% lower risk of an early death. And apparently if you're married, it means you're a guy, you're going to live longer because it means you take fewer risks. You drink less, you exercise more so you can stay alive to look after your wife. And the amount of all the bad things that happen as you get older is less if you're married, apparently, by every study.
Also, too, if you drop dead, there's someone there to see you.
Yeah. My husband saved my life because I had pneumonia and I was at home in 2013 and I didn't want to go to the hospital. And he was, doing all these things. And he finally said, look, I'm going to drag you to a taxi. You're a disaster. And had I not gone that day, the doctor said I probably would have kicked it. So, yeah, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah, you have someone around to tell you what to do.
Definitely.
Good. All right. But that phrase, happy wife, longer life, is a play on happy wife, happy life, which I think we need to admit that's also technically in the definition of coercive control. The idea that you are less... if you don't do as I say, I will make your life more miserable. They've outlawed that now, and yet you still use that phrase.
I mean, can you take the squabbling? Sometimes you just have to let it go. We have to do it too.
Yeah. Well, this is from the Mirror now, and the big belly button debate, innie or outie. Well, the woman on TikTok has really showed us hers. Take it away, Dana.
Okay, so you really have to see the visual on
Brace
this.
yourself,
yes. So a woman shares her protruding belly button as fans say she's perfect. TikTok user Chai has been praised for spreading the body positivity message after sharing her video, which shows her protruding belly button, as many fans rushed to comment to the section to tell her she's perfect. Well, that's a lie. The doctor messed up with her umbilical cord, and it's in my eyes, it's a bit of a deformation.
No.
I'm glad that she can accept herself. That's great, but we have to see this.
No, you have to see this.
You have to see it.
Brace yourself, trigger
I
warning.
thought it was going to be nothing, and I was like,
Like, this is the kind of belly button that might get you killed in a hate crime.
It actually looks like a pole coming out of it. It's that thick and long. It looks like something coming out of the other side of her, like she's been stabbed by a sphere. It's very...
It looks like a short, stumpy penis in the middle of her belly.
Good Lord. So you said it, yes.
So she could have just half a spear held on her back and do one of those where there's blame, there's a claim thing.
Yeah, you're right. She could do that, yeah.
I mean, is this not the kind of thing that ordinarily you'd just get a doctor to do? I mean, that lump removed at some point.
You know, it's strange. I dated someone who had a tail, and he told me that. He said, no, this is years ago.
At the bottom of the sign, I knew one of them.
Yeah, he said, and I thought he was, imagining it or exaggerating just for conversation. And he said, no, I have an extended spine with extra hair on it. And it actually was. He looked like a horse, like a little floppy tail from it. I know. It's amazing.
Did it help him balance better?
Well, I guess it did. I said, he was a good sailor. Maybe it was, help him steer the boat. I said, why didn't you have it corrected by it? He said, well, you can't really have the spine ground down. It's my skeletal structure. So maybe nothing can be done for this woman. Maybe it's just the way it is for her. She's got to love her love me, love my flaws.
I don't know. They put a man on the moon.
Yeah, seriously. She could wear a
take
jumper.
a belly button off a person.
Thick jumper to cover that thing. I wouldn't.
We have to see the picture.
No, it's really.
The picture's not quite ready.
Oh.
It's been vetoed for health and safety reasons.
Yeah.
The Independent next, and someone has found I think it's a 2,000-year-old penis, and all of the jokes that I'd written have been removed from the autocue. Don't blame them. Scott.
Well, speaking of which, of penises, Dana brought it up earlier. The metal detectorist unearthed this 2,000-year-old penis. Wendy Thompson, well done, Wendy, was adventuring with a friend near Gravesend, and a silver Roman penis pendant, described as a significant national find, was unearthed on a farm in Kent from the Roman era, so about 2,000 years old, as we said. She's a retired estate agent, Miss Thompson. She said it was only a tiny thing, really, she's talking about what she found, and the thing she dug up from the ground as well. And she said, we were just on a normal little field trip, and with a metal detector, it popped up. She said, I could tell it was about 2,000 years old.
And she didn't get to keep it. She had to give up the dick.
It's a foreskin, shaft, and pubes, about that big. Adorable. Are you okay?
Have we used up all of our quota? I think we might have used
It's from the Roman era, and it's now a national treasure. The phallus has been donated to a museum, and she knew she'd have to give it up, but she kept it for 14 days just to get to know it, have a chat, make it a cup of tea.
Do you know what? This is actually not unheard of. I don't know if you've ever been to Thailand. I was so shocked. There was this one guy who used to work on the boats, and he literally had a belt of wooden penises around his waist.
Oh, wow.
It's called palad kik. So it's called an honorable surrogate penis, and it's for luck and protection. And some of them, there's even a cave that I saw in one of the Krabi, anyways, was just a cave of penises, statues of penises, like the size of a body.
Definitely being told full quoting.
Where is that again? No, but
Evolve, I think, managed to get it.
No, to add some worthiness to this, in Roman culture, the penis had a lot of different associations. And it says here that the association of the phallus with children is mentioned by Varro, who noted a certain indecent object that is hung on the neck of boys to prevent harm and to protect them.
What about like a little vagina pendant or just an evil eye? Because we know what it is.
Yeah, I think that
might definitely
bring all sorts of reactions. Give it a try, Dana. Let us know how it works.
Wednesday's Times once more, and a lesson in cow husbandry.
Yeah, so Indian farmers who abandon their cows after the animals stop producing milk could be jailed for up to 2 years under animal cruelty laws. Of course, we know in India that the cows are sacred, but I mean, this is a very common practice in the West. I mean, at the end of the day, if the cow can't give milk, and if you look at chickens, right, that can't produce eggs, the males, they're slaughtered, I think, in the thousands per day, you know, because there's nothing to do with them. It is what it is.
Have you been in India?
No.
Yeah, I've been standing on a corner trying to get a taxi and was drenched in urine by a cow. Drenched.
Had they seen the show?
Yeah, I'm blaming my jokes. And I didn't mind. I was wearing, yoga attire, as you do in India. But it ruined my shoes. I was furious, and my camera. But I got to know the cow pretty well, because you can't be angry at them. You can't even punch them. If you're punching a cow is against the law. Tugging its tail, the whole thing, all against the law.
See, that's so hard for me. I'm such a carnivore. Once I saw a truck of pigs, and I swear I started drooling like I was on Looney Tunes.
They're
like I was
delicious.
just like.
And yet you don't like the fry-up.
No,
Unbelievable.
because
Fresh
it's not meat.
No, wait.
10%.
Have you had a fresh pig?
No, I've never eaten fresh pig.
I stayed on a farm where they slaughtered it. We had it for dinner that afternoon. It's like cotton candy, melts in your mouth. Fantastic.
Oh, so they had cooked it. I was worried that you
We roast them whole. That happens all the time.
Delicious.
This is from The Sun, and while we're speaking about animal safety, we're being told, don't kill flies.
And wasps. Apparently, The Sun says there's a stark warning out not to kill bugs, flies, wasps, and bees this summer, as numbers are rapidly declining. Flying insects have plunged, the numbers of them, by 65% in England over the last 20 years. And the result from the Bugs Matter study by the Kent Wildlife Trust concerns everyone, a specialist Paul Hadaway says, because when insects decline, it means that there's an enormous threat to our wildlife in general.
So
we all know that
stops
bees.
pollination.
Yeah, bees have
affects
something
our
to
food
do with-
sources, animal food
everything.
sources.
I love having bugs in the house. I love when I'm doing yoga and a spider comes down. I just love. They're looking after you. They're sweet. I think they're adorable bugs.
No,
They're our friends.
the only way you get to come in my house is if you knock.
Oh, God.
Some of the spiders around October time can knock. They're huge. I used to live down in Kent, and those spiders.
Do you know what's so crazy? My partner's allergic to bees, so one flew into our house, and I killed it just so he didn't die, basically. But I realized when I looked it up, because in Jamaican culture, when bees come into your house, it's actually it's good luck. It means money's coming. So I just wrecked my finances by killing this bee as well.
I just don't want to kill bugs because insect-pollinated crop plants such as apples they need the pollen. So I can't have breakfast. I know.
Poached apples.
I'd be slaughtering pigs every day, like you do.
Sounds so much tastier. Well, on that animal husbandry note, save the flies. Be careful of the flies. That's all that we have time for today. Thank you very much for my guests, Dana Alexander and Scott Capurro. Join us tomorrow from 11 o'clock when we'll be going through the newspapers and doing all the reviewing for you so that you don't have to. Till then, have a good one.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton